Usually when Luna releases something small, like a teaser that I have thoughts about, I can't realistically make a video on it because it won't fill enough time. These things end up on my Twitter, so if you're interested you can check them out there, and subscribe to this channel too while it's on your mind. For Luna's new moon teaser though, I have a lot to say. To me this teaser feels like we're going back to Butterfly era. It's similar in the way that it communicates so much to us in so little time. The soundtracks of these teasers are amazing too. They communicate mood so effectively that it almost emulates dialogue. The new moon teaser can be split into 3 parts. As I play the clips, focus more on the music and how the sounds inform what's happening. Don't worry about missing something visual. I'll be showing the visuals again as I explain. The music here reiterates the same kind of atmosphere we get at the end of Why Not. Gowon and Hyunjin both being shown alone paired with this somber music gives you the feeling of after a party ends and everyone goes home. Like when the house is empty after being filled with so much noise, and you're confronted with the silence and open space around you. The drama of the cinematography gives you a sense that the party's over, but there are consequences to what you did during the high of the party that you now have to take responsibility for. In Luna's case, this is shown on the grandest scale possible. Notice in the first shot, Gowon is parallel with the Earth. She's observing. The landscape on the planet is calm. Then in the next shot, she's lowering herself down toward Earth. This is when the hurricane starts to develop. The close-up of her face and the emotion she portrays connects these 2 clips. Gowon is being confronted by the Earth. We don't know what this problem is that the Earth represents yet, but we know that it's troubling her. She observes the planet while she works up the nerve to confront it head-on. We can see the worry on her face. She's stalling out of nervousness. Then in the next clip, the conflict starts to manifest. The hurricane. In the shot preceding Hyunjin, the only land we can see is here in the upper left-hand corner. This looks suspiciously like the dry pieces of land that we can see throughout Why Not. The butterfly that crosses Hyunjin's shoulder here automatically connects Hyunjin with Gowon, but this first section of the teaser cements it. It doesn't just connect the 2 individuals, it seems to imply that Gowon's action here is connected to Hyunjin's reaction here. It says maybe that while Gowon creates this hurricane, Hyunjin is down there having to brace herself for it, or is dealing with the wreckage it causes afterwards. Or it could possibly show Gowon is motivated by Hyunjin's isolation to confront her problem and create the hurricane. Like creating the hurricane is something that's hard for her to do, but she does it because she knows it will improve Hyunjin's situation. In Star we get a similar dynamic between these 2. Hyunjin walks up to the window and can only see her own reflection, but Gowon is outside in the cold reaching out for her. The butterfly in Hyunjin's scene shows that Gowon is responsible for Hyunjin being isolated and disheveled at the end of Why Not. This puts a wall between them, possibly representing both a physical and emotional distance. Hyunjin can't see past her misfortune, she can't see through the window. Gowon is aware of how she hurt Hyunjin, and when she realizes that it's in her hands to fix, she knows she has to shoulder the cold, shoulder the hurricane, and close the distance between them. The first thing we can see is the transition from Gowon as the butterfly, to the butterfly burning, to Yves in her circle of cars. The clip of the butterfly burning is sourced from the infamous Burn teaser, where the events of Plus Plus and XX are burned. Since we don't know Gowon's exact conflict, it's hard to draw the connection between her and Yves here. If we take the burning butterfly as a symbol of so what, where Gowon's butterfly effect reversal in X2X was undone, maybe it could be that the undoing of this effect caused Yves to go to where she is shown here. We don't know what the importance of this location is, but we know it's where Vivi comes to look for her after she's gone. The story between Yves and Vivi and Why Not shows that Yves is confident where she is, but Vivi is trying to find her. But is Vivi simply following Yves while she wanders off on her own? Or is Yves aware that Vivi's following her and actively trying to avoid her? Yves is a character in the Luniverse who does as she pleases. She very rarely is motivated by something other than her own curiosity. I think these few seconds dedicated to them show us a new layer to this story. We know that Vivi experienced her time in Eden with Yves in a distorted way, because Earth girls who travel to Eden are unable to perceive Eden in its literal form. If Luna really destroyed the entire system of the Mobius and the three worlds that we know in So What, maybe in Why Not she's finally able to remember her time with Yves for what it really was. Maybe the transition of the loop into a more free world got rid of the corruption in her memory and showed her how the events really went. And that's why she's seeking out Yves in Why Not. These shots of Vivi and Yves in New give us this new view of Vivi's motivations, but another thing added to this in the new Moon teaser is this shot. In the new Moon teaser, this is the only shot that can't be placed within anything else in the Luniverse. We are shown new shots from Why Not, So What, and of Iceland, but we have never seen this Vivi in the Luniverse before. I've seen some people argue that this shot came from debut era, since in the Cinema Theory Line and Up teaser, Vivi has brown hair, no bangs, and the jacket she wears has a similar color palette. But I would argue that this isn't referencing this, because the jacket has notable differences, and this shot was probably filmed between So What and Why Not after she grew out her bangs but before she dyed it orange for Why Not promotions. Let's examine this shot in context. It shows Vivi's memories with Yves flashing rapidly while we hear sounds of glitching. This new shot breaks the overwhelmingly fast pace with a sudden stillness and the sound of the wind. It appears in this shot that Vivi is looking back and deciding to walk away from something. Is it possible she's giving up her pursuit of Yves? This shot also has the first city skyline that we've seen since So What. The city skyline is a very important symbol in the Luniverse that represents Earth. Historically, it is a very reliable indicator of setting. We are still in the process of determining how the new Luniverse operates after it was destroyed in So What, so I wonder what this previously prolific symbol is going to represent from this point forward. That isn't all there is to this part though. The pace picks back up after this shot of Vivi and connects some interesting things. It shows water, fire, Olivia Hay at the end of So What, Heaton in the field in Why Not, a shot of hands grasping from Egoist, and then these shots of this ball type shape being ripped apart. This sequence is kind of ambiguous about what is supposed to be connected together. As the Luniverse progresses, Olivia only becomes more and more associated with fire. They push this association further by sourcing both of these symbols from So What. This causes the order that the symbols appear to not really match. Going by the order, it would associate Olivia with water and Heaton with fire, but since we know this isn't true, we have to look for other connections. The novelty of the ocean as a symbol seems to connect it with the preceding novel shot of Vivi. And although the shot of the water is the first to return to this fast-paced, glitching kind of motif, the ocean carries the same calmness and quiet as the silence and wind from Vivi's shot. This then transitions into fire and Olivia. The juxtaposition of Olivia and Heaton between the two shots connects them together, but then that leaves Heaton to be connected to the shot of clasping hands from Egoist. This is really puzzling to me. This connection led me to think of this moment in Egoist, where Olivia meets Heaton for the first time. Egoist shows Olivia's story once she lands on Earth. She eats the plum and falls to Earth out of anger, seeking revenge on Yves for leaving her behind. But as she navigates the stairwells to find the others, she goes on a journey of self-discovery and self-love. Egoist, Hi Hi, and Hi Hi's original choreography all suggest Odd Eye Circle were the first to find Olivia after she fell to Earth. But this connection between Heaton and this symbol of the moment Olivia learns to love herself suggests they impacted Olivia personally less than previously suggested. It could be that Odd Eye Circle were simply the ones to guide Olivia in the right direction towards Heaton, who welcomed her into Luna. This was the memorable meeting for Olivia, since Luna was the first place she was accepted unconditionally as an individual and not for how well she was able to conform like in Eden. Even though these shots match in pace with this part of the teaser, I think their implication is better applied later. To me, these particularly look like they were shot with a gun. Their application here represents an impending destruction. This section is best analyzed overall, rather than in sequence or in individual parts. This section connects Haseul and Chu together, and solidifies that this object is in fact an airplane. The historical connection between Haseul and Chu is that Haseul is the first person to find Chu once she falls to Earth. This information is hard to apply because of our lack of information about Haseul. The last thing we know she did was be affected by Gowon splitting the timelines, as she was last shown in Butterfly, but we can gain some more clues by examining Haseul's small concluding section of the teaser. The entire shot is washed out in green, which is an effect that is shown in a handful of other shots, but what makes this instance different is that we can see a circular figure pan over Haseul's shoulder. The order of the shots between Chu and Haseul would imply that this circular figure is meant to be the same moon we see Chu gazing at in the sky in her scenes. Similarly, we see a symbol of Haseul, the airplane, reaching Chu. So in Chu's scene, we see the moon and the airplane, and in Haseul's scenes, by which I include the shots with the green overlay, we can see both the moon and the airplane represented as well. We don't know exactly how either of these symbols will specifically come into play, but what we can conclude is that both Haseul and Chu are affecting each other in some way. There is still a distance between them, but both of them are influenced by the other enough to be connected by these symbols. Slightly unrelatedly, I just want to point out that this shot of Haseul is not an old recycled shot. As I am making this video, this shot of Haseul has been the only thing we have seen from her. There has been no statement from BBC about the ending of her hiatus, so we aren't exactly clear about the conditions of her hiatus ending. But what we can piece together is that Haseul has recorded this scene recently. @Kevin_PNG on Twitter made a version of this shot with the flicker effect reduced. In this version, we can see what looks like the ends of her hair. We haven't seen her with this hair length in any music videos, so we can assume that this is new. There is the possibility that she may have recorded this before she went on hiatus, but the initial statement from BBC implied that she would have been unable to film at the point that her hair was this length when we last saw her. So it is not a guarantee, but I'm going to hope for her quick return and that she will be in good health for the upcoming era. At the very end of the teaser, we can see that the symbol for this era resembles a moon instead of the historical tendency towards placing text inside this circle. Then, the shading of the moon starts to break up and crack until the circle disintegrates. This makes sense considering the title we can assume is New Moon, and when the moon is in its new moon phase in the sky, it is completely hidden in the shadow of the earth and not visible. But the breaking down of this circle that previously contained the album titles within it represents a major change in Luna's situation. It hints towards the established Luniverse being destroyed. We could have already parsed this from the details we have seen so far in Why Not and Star, but this solidifies that the old Luniverse is gone, and the Luna Girls will have to rebuild it from the ground up. My hope is this era will make it clear to us about what the rebuilt Luniverse will look like, and what elements will be preserved from the past. Once you have examined the entire teaser in detail, looking back at the big picture reveals some interesting things. Each section of the teaser depicts a pairing, but each of these pairings have something in common. Each 1/3 girl's position in Luna is the opposite of their YY partner. Heejin is the first girl, Olivia is the last girl. Hyunjin is second, and Gowon is second to last. Haseul is third, Chu is third to last. And as Vivi is the fourth and 1/3, Yves is fourth to last. Applied to this teaser, this could tell us something about the distance between each pairing. Star shows us Luna not as a linear group made of members who came into the Luniverse one by one, but as a circle with all members representing an equal place. The connection between Hyunjin and Olivia shows us the two ends of the line meeting to form a circle where all the members are connected. In Star and New Moon, Olivia and Hyunjin have coinciding imagery that shows them coming together. In the circle, Hyunjin and Gowon are both one step away from the meeting point of Olivia and Hyunjin. This ties into the conflict between them that I went into earlier. They are separated by a wall that gives the illusion of a larger separation than it is. One step farther is Haseul and Chu. It is hard to gauge their distance because of our lack of information about Haseul, but we know they are both being affected by the same events, the moon and the airplane, so it's possible they are farther apart than Hyunjin and Gowon, but not far enough that they are outside the range of each other's influence. Then lastly, Vivi and Yves, who have 7 steps between them. You would think these two would be the closest, considering they were shown in the same physical place in Why Not? But the new information shown to us in New Moon shows Vivi walking away. Vivi is giving up her pursuit of Yves, and thus both of them are now contributing to the distance between them. In the second half of the teaser, there is a distinctive piano in the instrumental. This one note repeated over and over is the same note that is played in a similar manner in the Midnight teaser, where instead of a piano, it is meant to sound like the beeping of machinery. These two instrumentals also have a similar pacing. If you layer them on top of each other and line up the first beeps, the first section does not line up, but it eventually synchronizes again as each one reaches the height of its intensity. I'll play the layered audio, but I'll caution you, it doesn't sound great.
Discovery Houston, we're still looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
These teasers represent the beginning and the end of the Midnight era. In making these instrumentals this similar, they would be portraying to us that New Moon will be a direct continuation of Why Not, as in, New Moon's story will pick up where Why Not left off, or that the events portrayed in New Moon's music video will elaborate on things we see in Why Not. I'll conclude with a prediction for the next era. Since Butterfly, each title track music video has come with a message. Butterfly was for all Lunas around the world, where the call to action is for all Lunas around the world to raise their voices in order to reach self-actualization as Luna has. For So What, the message was to all Lunas around the world. This message encouraged girls to use their passion to break out of preconceived boundaries that were set for them. And Why Not's message was with all Lunas around the world. Because the concept was that they are together, there was not an accompanying video for this message showing non-Luna girls portraying it. This message stated that every girl around the world was united and that their voices ring loud and clear in an effort for equality. My prediction for New Moon's message is that it will move forth to protecting the Earth. With all Lunas around the world establishes that there are no more obstacles keeping Luna from being united. If New Moon will be an extension of the events portrayed in Why Not, the focus could turn to them having to build a new world from before. Their slogan this time could be with all Lunas for the world. In-universe, this aligns with them building a new place for them to inhabit, but the real-world application of this could be mobilizing people to prevent climate change. The New Moon teaser is made up of old clips, but these old clips that they've chosen specifically invoke climate advocate imagery. We see Gowon viewing the Earth from space and all its ocean. The ground we see is dried out from a drought. The plane and radio sounds invoke industrialization in a negative light. The pan over Iceland and then the circle breaking up at the end could represent the ice caps melting and breaking apart. This would also align with the many PSAs Luna has participated in regards to the environment. I don't know how likely it is that this guess is correct, but could you imagine if I predicted the entire era based on one teaser? I think New Moon era is going to be one to look forward to. For how much information I could gather from just this first teaser, and how much potential there is for Luna's story to progress, I'm guessing this era will hold a lot to analyze, and hopefully this era will be the ending of Haseul's hiatus and that she can return to us in good health. Here's to hoping New Moon era will be an era of prosperity for all 12 members of Luna together.